Hello, I'm Thomas Campbell, a physicist and a consciousness researcher, the author of the My Big Toe trilogy. I would like to introduce you to a new set of concepts that logically and scientifically explain in detail both the objective and the subjective worlds, and your place and potentiality within both. And I will do this with language that is easy to understand. These ideas will likely change your life in a dramatic, positive way. Much of this information is contained within a trilogy of books called My Big Toe. It is a big toe that is a big theory of everything because it represents a completely scientific and logical theory of everything. Everything objective and everything subjective. Yes, absolutely everything, the totality of your reality. It is my big toe because until it is fully confirmed by your own personal experience, it cannot be your big toe. You see, if something is not contained within your personal experience, it cannot be part of your personal truth. You can believe it or not believe it, but neither of those adds any real value to your personal understanding. These ideas are not something to be believed. Indeed, beliefs of any sort should always be avoided. This is a theory to be fully lived and experienced within your subjective existence and to provide a much deeper understanding of the objective world and your place in it. It represents a more general and advanced physics for the objective world, as well as answers the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How can I find peace, tranquility, and satisfaction within the subjective world? The concepts within my big toe will enable you to understand in detail the what, the why, the how of the world you live in. There are absolutely no beliefs and only two assumptions underlying these ideas. The first assumption is consciousness exists, and the second, evolution exists. From these two rather mundane and obvious assumptions, all else is logically derived. Much of the science directly derived from an in-depth understanding of consciousness is collected within a science playlist on the free My Big Toe YouTube channel. Proper mindset for absorbing this material is to be open-minded and absolutely and completely skeptical of everything. In my model of consciousness and the physical world, consciousness is fundamental. From the materialist viewpoint, there is a pyramid that describes the increasing complexity of the hard sciences. It is sometimes called the hierarchy of scientific knowledge. Note, physics is at the bottom as the most foundational science. Chemistry has its roots in physics. Biology has its roots in chemistry. Consciousness has its roots in biology, so the materialists say. The implication being that biology, the brain, creates consciousness. This belief is just one of a rather large set of ideas that lie within the limited thought space of academia because materialism is a dominant belief in our culture. In the next slide, you see that I have moved consciousness from the tip of the pyramid to a foundational space beneath physics, as well as beyond and outside of the physical space of the physical sciences, into the subjective space of the non-physical sciences. Because consciousness is a non-physical phenomenon. It is entirely subjective. Yes, this implies that physics can be logically derived from consciousness. Indeed, this can be and has been done. Modern physics is essentially bounded by quantum physics and relativity, and both can be directly derived from an understanding of consciousness. So, what is consciousness? I define it simply as awareness with a choice. Here, awareness implies awareness of both self and outside of self. Choice implies memory. Otherwise, every choice would appear to be the first and only choice, and thus be meaningless. Furthermore, memory and choice imply growth or change in the awareness, since the awareness would be aware of the consequences of its choices. My model starts with the simplest possible form of consciousness and lets it evolve naturally, the way logic demands. From the logical necessities of this evolution, one can derive a more general physics, that is, a more complete understanding of the objective world, and a more complete understanding of the subjective world, including the intuitive side of consciousness, which contains all of the psi phenomena, all of the paranormal phenomena. From my consciousness research, I developed a set of consciousness facts, subjective facts, things I knew to be true by extensive, repetitious experimentation. As a physicist, I also possessed a set of material facts, objective facts about the objective world that we call our physical universe. I started looking for a logically consistent, overarching model of reality that would explain both sets of facts. A model that was falsifiable and required all facts to be defined only by multiple, repeatable experiments. As with any scientific model, it should be judged solely on its ability to explain all known facts and predict new facts, not on how well it conforms to current beliefs in scientific and cultural dogma. In constructing this model, I used the words and metaphors of modern computing because they most naturally fit the facts. That is true because consciousness is an information system. Awareness is an awareness of information. Nothing more, nothing less. The MBT model of reality requires consciousness to be fundamental. That is one of those facts I learned while exploring the paranormal with Bob Monroe. Consciousness is an information system. I call this system the Larger Consciousness System, LCS. Its evolution is driven by survival, as is ours. This means it is driven by the need to lower its entropy. Think of an information system with random bits. It has no information. If it orders some of its bits and gives that ordering some meaning, that now has some information. Entropy is a measure of disorder. The LCS raises or lowers its entropy according to the choices it makes. Positive evolution is made by making choices that lower entropy. The larger consciousness system partitions off parts of itself as individuated units of consciousness, IUOCs, with free will, to create more and better opportunities to lower its entropy. Those IUOCs, those individuated units of consciousness, are us. The larger consciousness system also partitions off a portion of itself to serve as the server or computer of this virtual reality that naturally evolves from a set of initial conditions and a rule set. The rule set defines how those initial conditions might change over time. It does this to provide its individuated units of consciousness more challenging and more consequential choices in order to enhance its own evolution. An individuated unit of consciousness, the IUOC, is the player of a human avatar within a virtual reality. Our so-called physical reality is an evolving virtual reality computed by consciousness, not a programmed virtual reality, rather a virtual reality that is still evolving from a set of initial conditions. And a rule set defines how those initial conditions can change as a function of time. The virtual reality we call our physical reality is computed within the larger consciousness system and data streams are sent to each of its individuated units of consciousness players. Our virtual reality exists only in the minds of the players. This may seem to be far out on the edge, but if you judge this new paradigm, this model, on what it can explain, rather than how closely it fits your current beliefs, you will find that all the fundamental paradoxes in both the hard and soft sciences, philosophy, the paranormal, and even theology, completely disappear, to be replaced by detailed understanding of how and why reality works as it does. No new paradoxes are created. Additionally, a new science of the subjective world is also delivered. You are consciousness, a subset of the larger consciousness system, a virtual machine running within a mainframe. Your mission, innate evolutionary drive, is to lower your entropy by making lower entropy choices, or equivalently, by raising the quality of your consciousness by making higher quality choices. Lowering your entropy within a social system of individuated units of consciousness requires you to get rid of your fear and the twin children of fear, your ego and your belief, to become more caring, cooperative, passionate, empathetic, and other-centered, as opposed to self-centered. You move, mature, and grow toward becoming love as you evolve the quality of your consciousness. Consciousness is an information system, and as consciousness, you have direct access to much of the information within the consciousness system and indirect access to all of it. This explains many psi phenomena by explaining where the paranormal information comes from. The rest of the psi phenomena are explained by the fact that focused being level, as opposed to intellectual level intent, modifies future probability, and by the fact that all consciousness is netted. The nature of consciousness and reality, and the part you play in it, is not all this new paradigm delivers. That is just the beginning. It also derives both quantum physics and relativity from first principles, thus ending quantum weirdness, explaining just how and why a so-called probabilistic wave function produces a physical particle. It explains why C is a constant most of the time, and why C occasionally changes ever so slightly. It scientifically derives and explains paranormal phenomena, resolves all the outstanding paradoxes in both the hard and soft sciences, philosophy, metaphysics, and even theology without creating any new assumptions or paradoxes. I've published a set of 5 quantum physics experiments in the peer-reviewed journal, International Journal of Quantum Foundations, that will provide evidence that this is a virtual reality and that consciousness is the computer. Results will be available soon. This new perspective not only provides a better, more general science of the objective world, but it also produces a new, detailed science of the subjective world. Science that can tell you why there is pain and struggle in your life, how to improve relationships, how you can be happy and fulfilled within your present circumstances and find peace within a troubled world. I believe that this new understanding of consciousness and reality represents the next big paradigm shift in both science and life. New paradigms that differ greatly from present beliefs will take time to penetrate humanity's tendency to cling to old beliefs, old perspectives. It may take decades or even centuries, but because the truth is not fragile, it will eventually rise to the top of the pile of competing ideas. I am relatively certain that these concepts, or something very much like them, will become your future understanding because it very simply and elegantly delivers better, more general science and a better, more satisfying life.